this morning. I know that Gwen has got to go at 10:30, but what I'll do is we'll go around the room and introduce ourselves. I'm sitting in for Eileen, who's in some warm clime, somewhere celebrating an anniversary, so I've been thrust into the hot seat. My name is Maureen Cummings and I'm an elected member here in Wakefield. If you just tell us who you are and where you're from.
Good morning everyone, I'm Councillor Oliver Edwards and I'm here from Leeds City Council.
Good morning everyone, Councillor Nusrat Mohammed from Bradford.
I'm Councillor Chris Hayden, also from Bradford.
I'm Councillor Jack Ferguson, I'm from Wakefield.
Councillor Andrew Carter, Leeds.
Good morning, Jo Sykes, I'm one of the two independent members.
I'm Rebecca Westerman, I'm Policy and Research Assistant at Ridgewell Council.
Morning, Andrew Wright, Head of Force Performance, West Yorkshire Police.
John Roberts, Chief Constable, West Yorkshire.
Alison Lowe, Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime, West Yorkshire.
Wendy Stevens, Research and Performance Manager for the Combined Authority.
Morning, Rob Forrest, Head of Policing and Crime at the Combined Authority.
Anna Scaife, Research and Performance Officer at the Combined Authority.
Morning, Trevor Lake, Independent Member.
Good morning, Councillor Anthony Smith from Lindley and Kirklees.
Morning, Councillor Shane Taylor from Calderdale, subbing for Councillor Anne Kingston.
Morning everyone, Councillor Gwen Lowe from Batley West in Kirklees.
And good morning, my name is Councillor Howard Blackburn. I'm here from Calderdale Council and I'm a substitute on behalf of Councillor Geraldine Carter, who is the Deputy Mayor this year.
Good morning, Karen Fraser from Wakefield Council, Legal Advisor to the panel.
And Fiona Bernardo, Wakefield Council and Policy and Partnerships Officer.
Okay, thank you. The first plea I would make is that there are people in here who are hard of hearing, so if we could at all use the microphones, then please let's use the microphone.
Just reflecting back on the previous 12 months, the Mayor of the Festival has to present the final iteration, and so we try to get your feedback before it goes to print. It's going to go to the wonderful team at Wycombe who will do all the graphics and make it look pretty. And we're going to put it online in December, send you a link, and then you get a physical copy that we're in the Mayor over here for preset. We're really happy to answer any questions you might have about the work that's been conducted.
some of these questions actually drift into other issues that are elsewhere on the agenda, and I'm sure Wendy you'll see that you might wish to come in on those. But the first question we've got is from Anthony.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alison and the team, for putting this report together. It is very comprehensive. Please don't take this as a criticism, because you know the detail is welcome, but given the target audience, I found it quite a technical read in places, and I wondered whether, as you did with the police, as you did with the plan on a page for the plan, whether there could be a supplementary document which recognises the target audience and perhaps is a couple of pages which gives some of the broad themes and successes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much. That's a great suggestion. Once it's been finalised, we've got all your comments, and the graphics and stuff have been developed. I'm really happy to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You didn't have two questions there, did you?
No, I have two questions, but I'm happy to let somebody else speak before I speak again.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Chair. Again, very comprehensive, enjoyable read. Just a suggestion there, because I'm on this panel, I like to Google a few things. So maybe a nice glossary at the beginning, not just to expand the acronyms, but also explain what those acronyms are, just in a sentence.
Yeah, we normally do, so we'll make sure that.
It's nice to hear graphic design as well.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
No, it's been covered in what Alison said in her introduction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Oliver.
Good morning. I'd like to ask a question about, thank you for the report, first of all. I'd like to ask about safety on public transport. So I think this is something that covers a number of the different themes, and particularly thinking, for example, about women and girls, thinking about different minority groups, adults with neurodiversity, and also older adults as well. And when we think about incidents happening within the community, I know there's been quite a lot of work, for example, at major bus stations, at train stations, but when we think about some of the response within the community, and particularly, for example, when people are using buses, when people are on buses, there are both lower level and also higher level incidents which are happening. How do you assess the current response from the police, and what opportunities do you think there are for improving that response, and particularly when incidents are happening within the community?
I think I understand what you're saying. So, as you know, we've got a safe travel team. There's a partnership between West Yorkshire Combined Authority and West Yorkshire Police. It's headed up by a sergeant who has, I think it's 15 PCSOs and police officers, because those PCSO numbers have reduced, they've been replaced with police officers, who sit on the bus network and respond to concerns, primarily come through feedback at bus stations, but also through the bus safety tool that is within the M-card. So we've got your M-card on your phone. There's a bus safety tool that you can use to identify places where you don't feel safe. Anyone can do that, whether you've got one protected characteristic or another. And we've done a big push out of that communication so that more and more people are using that tool. West Yorkshire Police, the sergeant can access that data almost live, and he uses that information to deploy his resources, because 15 PCSOs, police officers, it's not a huge amount for the many bus stations and buses across West Yorkshire, but it means that we can target those areas that people are telling us they have concerns about. And also what the Safe Travel team are doing, along with Bikers, bus station staff, is they're doing a lot of preventative work. So, for example, we had some incidents in Fossett where young people were coming to the bus station causing antisocial behaviour. That was dealt with, but then the schools that those young people came from were visited by a Safe Travel team, by Biker staff, and education and awareness raising was done with those young people in the school. We also do work with businesses in the bus station around preventing on social behaviour, but also about vulnerabilities, identifying young people who might be at risk, because we know that serious organised criminals frequent places where young people go in order to exploit them, so we'll do some training to prevent that from happening. In fact, training happens at life group partners around safer travel. So we've got a comprehensive network of activity that takes place as part of a wider system, because obviously the Mayor has control over the whole bus network. And then to complement that, of course, looking at CCTV coverage in all stations, the Mayor was able to bring down quite a lot of government funding to expand the CCTV network. She's able to improve lighting, etc. on the network bus stations, but also working with train operators to see how we can work together. So there's lots and lots of things that we're doing. And I don't know if I answered the question. It was quite long.
Okay, quick follow-up, and then I think Howard has a follow-up as well.
I'll wait until the end.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I mean, the Safe Travel team do an excellent job, and I'm also aware that 15 officers over West Yorkshire is not a lot for the size, but I think when it comes to, I acknowledge what you said about the bus safety tool, which is very positive. How easy is it for people to engage in that who are not connected to technology, who are not using technology? I mean, what other ways are there for that information and that intelligence to be fed back?
So all bus stations have got trained staff who are part of the Safe Travel team. So the Safe Travel team is just the sergeant and the 15 PCSOs officers. It's a whole network of WICA staff sitting alongside West Yorkshire Police staff and officers. And they perform that safe travel function and support the public. So there's help desks in there, there's 24-hour helplines in those bus stations where there are no staff. The staff have been trained on things like mental health, pathways to support. So there's a whole range of activity taking place and support that is available in bus stations, particularly where the staff. I think some of that's complemented by local authorities, so Kirklees in particular. They've got a huge network of support that they offer in all their bus stations, but also in other community areas that's all linked. So we work with lots of partners to make sure that the support is there. So in Leeds, for example, we've been working with some of the Leeds City Council, with some of the charities that are working in the homelessness sector to address some of the concerns that are raised about street drinkers in bus station. We did a session, so our engagement team did a session in the bus station with users to understand what the issues were, to get that into WICA so that they can look at the training that they've got and also work there with the travel team to make sure that things are in place. But also we're working with the council to understand their commission services and what their role and responsibility is, because this is not just about policing, not just about WICA, it's about all the community coming together to make sure we're working in synergy.
Lovely, thank you. Okay. Thank you for your report. Comprehensive, loads to see, and in that light, the question that I'm asking may have seeped from one item to another, so forgive me please if that's the case. And I'm sort of interested in the association between school exclusion and violence, and also children being homeschooled, and I just wonder if you could tell us about the nature of your work around those things and what's happening there, please. Can I, before you answer that, Alison, because I also have a similar question from Councillor Hickson, who couldn't be with us today, which actually goes on to say, how are the figures around exclusion from schools and exposure to criminality are communicated to the wider community, excuse me, particularly schools?
So you may remember that we've got a Violence Reduction Partnership, and they've got a research team, and a couple of years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, they did a big piece of research into the link between exclusion, absenteeism, but particularly exclusion and permanent and short-term on entering the criminal justice system. That's a written report that will get off we've got a knowledge website that anyone can access, So we'll send you the link to that document. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think that it's 4 times more likely to enter the criminal justice system and then end up in prison if you are permanently excluded from school. And the data is even higher if you're black. So there's some really good evidence that means we need to be working better with schools. We need to be ensuring that schools have got other offers before exclusion is considered, because there is that really direct correlation. Homeschooling, obviously, it's not something that's within the mayor's purview, but we know that after lockdown, more children will be homeschooled. We don't know what the quality of that looks like. We don't know whether or not children are being exploited and not actually engaged in education. We do know that the government has been concerned about that, has brought in some rules about when parents can be given permission to take children out to homeschool. Don't know what the impact of that is yet, because that was following the death of a child by its parents who was taken out to be homeschooled. So the purpose was different, but the impact hopefully will benefit children across a wide range of different backgrounds. So I can't talk to homeschooling. We know that there are issues with homeschooling. It's a responsibility of local authorities, and I would suggest that we go back to them. Okay, and, but Wendy wants to come in, but the VRP research, we're going to send it to you so that you can use that yourself. It's really detailed. But there's also national data that also says the same thing.
Yeah, so I was going to say there was a national report by James Timpson that was highly acclaimed, talking exactly about this. And then the VRP did the report based on West Yorkshire data. So we're no different to the rest of the national data. It's a similar picture across, which shows actually on the data you can see it's all very similar across.
Thank you. That would be great to cast my eyes over that sort of thing. You could send me some info. And the other thing that we talked about was the link between exclusion and homeschooling and SEND, the SEND issues. So I think, that's something that it's nearly always related.
Yeah, and that might be something for the VRP to look at, because they've got a research function and it might be something that they can delve into next.
Jo, you had a similar question. Did you want to table that question?
No, Chair. In the discussions earlier, I was talking about where that ought to be cited and where those are directions, which I think Alison's reiterated.
Okay, thank you. Trevor?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'd agree with Anthony's comments about the benefit of having a sort of summary page at the front. Would be really good, I think, to get the successes across. It's been great before, lots of detail in there, obviously. Lots of good results that you've got across the year, which is great. I just wondered on page 9, on the priority 1, when I sort of stood back and looked at it, I didn't quite match up the items on the left-hand side, the priorities, with the comments on the right-hand side. I just wondered if there might be an opportunity there to put a bit more in. For example, I've got down as the 3 priorities from the respondents, knife crime, and then one at the bottom, domestic abuse. On the right-hand side, there's no mention of that. Unless I missed it somewhere in the following paragraphs, there's no great detail in there either. So I just wondered if there was an opportunity for you to...
So I'll let them come in a minute, but our serious violence responsibilities include violence against women and girls. So the serious violence duty includes violence against women and girls. The strategy we're developing includes violence against women and girls, which includes domestic abuse. But also the work of the safety, the Women's Safety Unit includes domestic abuse and other law offences. So it's just where I put the detail. But this is replicated from the policing plan. So why is this a priority is literally lifted from the plan, and then what we said we would do is actually lifted from what we said we would do in the plan. But it seems obviously high level, and then all the detail is in this report that we've done, and it'll be ongoing as we go forward over the 4-year period of the plan. So we don't put all the detail of we're going to, for example, support job on, or we're going to run Reclaim the Night events, or we're going to fund various organisations to deliver activity X or activity Y. That'll come through the annual plans that we tell you about. But the police and crime plan is a high-level document, and that's what we've just pulled out and replicated here.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just saying, from a person reading it for the first time, I look at the points on the left of the priorities, and it says on the right-hand side, what are we doing? And I don't see anything in there about that. Whether it's a narrative saying it's coming somewhere else, or it's just something you might want to have a look at.
Yeah, and we can also cross-reference with other bits of the report, because I think we do talk about domestic abuse in other bits of the report, so they might want to put page X, Y, and Z.
That might be a way to deal with it. Yeah. For example, you've got raising cybercrime awareness, but it doesn't come on the left-hand side, it's not down as a priority. So,
anything you want to add?
No, are you all right?
Yeah.
Anna put together the reports, I'm just checking.
Yeah, it was just there's certain bits, because obviously we didn't want to do too much repetition within the report, so there's kind of links, particularly with the domestic abuse, that then links to the bulk section, but we will have another look just to make sure it's clear for the reader, because we might have missed that, so thank you.
And just a small point on page 19, just to let you know I did read it, the combating is misspelled twice. It's correct on page 23 with narrative.
We like to leave a few mistakes in so you can see that it's
I know,
just a
I'm
draft.
really disappointed if I can spot something.
But we'll pick that up, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Andrew?
I think it's on the next item.
You're on the next item. I have you down for this one, but we'll put you on to the next item. Howard?
Yes, thank you, Alison, and thank you for an excellent report. It was great to see that the National Hate and Crime Awareness Week in Caldale reached 800 young people hosting 15 community events. My question is, what's been done to reach out to more younger people? Because actually, in particular, my concern is in relation to social media bullying. Because actually, bullying used to be 9 to 3, it's now 24 hours, and I'm concerned that more younger people aren't being, how do we reach out, basically?
Online hands are real and they're massive, and they disproportionately impact young people, as we know. We've got various strategies that we undertake. So obviously we've got the one-to-one work through our different engagement processes, which includes the one-to-one work that you've read about in the report. We've got a standing young persons group that have just changed the name, so I can't remember what they've called it. The young people wanted to change the name, so that's why we've changed it. And that's a standing group that meets on a very regular basis and is supported by our police and crime team engagement team. And they regularly discuss issues that are affecting them. We've also got the Youth Commission. So the Youth Commission are funded by the Violence Reduction Partnership, and they are trained as peer researchers. So they go out into their communities, their schools, their workplaces, because they're young people under 25. And they undertake research that then feeds an annual report which tells Tracy and I what their priorities are, what their concerns are. They developed an online campaign called Take a Seat earlier this year, which raised the issues of VOG was one of the issues, knife crime was one of the issues, I think hate crime was one of the issues that's part of the videos that they did. So that's an ongoing piece of work. In terms of the education awareness, you might not have heard of POLED, so West Yorkshire Police, some years ago came up with the idea that they would try to prevent young people committing crime, but also being engaged, being victims of crime by going upstream, going into schools and doing preventative work, education with young people from years 1 to 13. Obviously, the training is targeted to the appropriate age group. And it's a massive industry now, it's POLED, and we're selling it to other forces up and down the country. It's all being accredited by education experts, and there are, I think it's more than 60 courses now, so there's courses across a range of different crime types, online harms being one of them, and it helps the children to understand their responsibilities online, how to keep safe, but also some of the pitfalls that they might fall into, how they might themselves commit criminal acts. So young people send each other pictures of themselves, they don't understand that's a crime, if they've got no clothes on, for example. So all that learning takes place in schools. The last count, 97% of our 1,200 schools have signed up to Poly. So Poly runs across the vast majority of our schools now, that's primary and high schools. And we're still working to get to that 100%. And Tracy and I first came into office, 36% of schools have signed up. So we regularly engage with schools to ask them to sign up if we think it's a brilliant innovation which is shared by the forces, because they've now decided to pay West Yorkshire Police to give them access. And we've raised it with YEF, with the Youth Endowment Fund, because they're doing lots of work on how to raise awareness of crime amongst young people. So they're very interested in it. The Times has been to do a piece on it. It's not been published yet, but they spent the whole day with the team to look at the work because it's so innovative. And hopefully, in the next generation of young people will be smarter than this generation of young people and won't be exploited in the same way.
That's really a good to hear. And I suppose that includes additional support for children looked after as well, because they often fall through the nets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Oliver.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to pick up priority 2, working with the business community, and thinking particularly on a local level. So in my area, there have been quite a few issues with related to retail crime and social behaviour. And there's been some excellent work from the neighbourhood policing team, particularly with plainclothes operations. So thinking more on a West Yorkshire level, how satisfied are you at the moment with the amounts and also the quality of information that's being shared with neighbourhood policing teams by retailers, particularly on a local level? So how much information is being shared? Do you feel there's been an increase in the quality of the information? And also more generally on retail parks, especially what things can be done to highlight some of the examples of best practice and good practice that are happening in terms of retail parks working together on shoplifting and ASB, and what are the areas for improvement?
Okay, thank you. So I think the communication from retailers, businesses to police has massively improved. There was quite a big study done, I can't remember the source, but Wendy might remember, she sent it to me, which said that actually some ridiculous amount, about 80% of all retail crime was not reported to the police. So this was before the National Police Chiefs Council decided to come up with their retail crime action plan, which set out a variety of actions that the police agreed that they would undertake to be a bit more upfront and proactive with their policing of retail businesses. And I think that because of the NPCC's response, because businesses experience huge losses as a result of the economic downturn, Brexit, lockdown, COVID lockdown, huge numbers of people experiencing, retailers experiencing huge losses. I think it was a perfect storm, and people realised they needed to talk to each other a little bit better. And what's happened here in West Yorkshire is that Damien Miller, who was the ACC for neighbourhood policing, he set up a business board where private sector retailers, anybody who was interested in running a business wanted to be part of that board, could come together to talk about the issues and together to share some of the solutions. It's not just about policing, it's about prevention, it's about crime prevention, what businesses choose to do or don't choose to do. It's about reporting. As we know, many businesses have got tolerance, big businesses have got tolerance for some losses, which is not really acceptable because all crime should be reported. And the response, I think, has been much better, and businesses have been reassured by the response from policing. We've been working really closely with the business improvement districts, for example, in partnership, especially with the policing team. So, for example, here in Wakefield, I came to a launch of a new radio system that the police were supporting to improve relationships with businesses, because there's been an upturn of retail crime in Wakefield. And in Leeds, we visited, Wendy and I, in fact, went to Spring, in Halton. We went to visit a big retail part there to meet businesses to talk about some of the issues. And I know that that was brought to them by the divisional commander and Damien Miller, those businesses were invited to go onto this board. So there's been a lot more proactive work taking place. You asked the second question, but I can't remember what it was, it was a long time ago. Or Summer Surge. So obviously Summer Surge has been a really good opportunity to re-engage with businesses and as I reported here last time, we've had a big uplift in neighbourhood policing officers, about 100 officers. That was our pledge to the Home Office, and that was the funding that we received, and that meant that there was a growth in neighbourhood policing, and sitting alongside that was this request to do some summer activities in city centres like Castleford, like Harehalls, like the city centre, for example, and I've been to visit quite a lot of that activity, and we have to report back, and that's our office has to report back in partnership with West Yorkshire Police, so we've got to be satisfied about the things that are being done, and we signed off the plan, so West Yorkshire Police did a plan of things that they were going to do, which we had to sign off, and then we report back to say that yes, we're doing the things that we said we were going to do. So there's been huge numbers of activity, and we've seen some brilliant outcomes. So 100,000 pounds worth of drugs found in a car in Kirklees, for example, in Dewsbury, 17 partial house closures in Condale as a result of the work that Neil Preston, Chief Inspector here in Condale, was doing with Happy Days, but also with which is a charity, but also with some private landlords and the local authority. That's now led to other benefits. So now Happy Days have got in-house housing benefit to make sure that people who are being cuckooed, that's why the houses were closed in the first place, can have overnight security, and that came as a direct result of the work that the police were doing with that charity, with the local authority, with those housing providers. So there have been loads of benefits as a result. I don't know if the Chief Constable wants to add anything.
Yeah, just one more, a very comprehensive list. Thank you very much, Dr. Mayor. There's also been a forum as of the Partnership Intelligence Portal, which is open to all partnership organisations, third sectors, charities, commercial businesses, retail parks, where they'll get direct access of submission of intelligence into policing, so the neighbourhood policing teams can pick it up. And then secondly, we're also developing and learning of other areas around some software where probably the larger and commercial businesses can report crime directly into our crime recording systems if they comply with certain standards, upload information, intelligence, CCTV, which then gets a better response or a better ability for us to respond. But the Partnership Intelligence Portal is the answer to the sharing of intelligence information.
Yes, thank you very much for those very comprehensive responses, and the Summer Surge has been particularly welcome. I think you made a point about the tolerance for losses, and I think that is an issue. One of the things that I've certainly noticed is that even within the same company there can be differences in procedure from store to store, and particularly when it comes to the intelligence portal. So I think I would just add some encouragement to keep up the current work, but also to use the coordination role as you are to encourage the big retailers especially to make sure that all of their stores are doing similar things. And we've got an opportunity here in West Yorkshire, given that a number of the big supermarkets have their headquarters here, so please keep up the good work.
Thank you. Okay, I have no further questions on this. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Chair. My question relates to Combating Drugs Partnership Strategic Board. It's on page 23, and there's a mention of nitazines and the deployment of naloxone, or naloxone rather. So I've got a couple of questions really. One, you give an indication of the number of deaths nationally. Do you have any idea of how that affects West Yorkshire specifically? How long is the pilot run for? What does success look like? How is it being funded? And if it's successful, is it going to be rolled out to all officers? And are there any barriers in terms of budgets or anything to stop us doing that?
So thank you very much for that question. So I'm really passionate about naloxone, and Chief Constable and I have been working together to achieve the success that we've achieved so far. Obviously we've got further to go. I can't tell you what the numbers are in West Yorkshire because some people may overdose and naloxone wouldn't have been deployable in their circumstances in any event. They're not always reported through the coroner, so we don't have the data. You know, we could probably do that, and we can probably talk to our directors of public health and get a guesstimate. But yeah, that data is not collected in that way. But we could ask the question at our next board, and the head of policy teams here, so I'll make sure that he asks me who leads on that piece of work. We can Simon. Is it Simon or me? Anyway, it's both of them, I think. Yeah, to lead on that piece of work, just to ask those questions and see if we can get an approximation. So the pilot was for 6 months, and we're hoping that when the evaluation is completed, we can roll it out. The problem with naloxone is that police officers cannot be forced to carry naloxone. It's not in the job description, it's seen as a medical intervention, but we've got a lot of really brilliant officers and PCSOs who want to be part of the solution and who have volunteered to be trained. So we've had a third sector partner who have done the training for free, and which has been brilliant. And as we get the evaluation through, we will be offering that as a volunteer opportunity to more and more police officers and PCSOs. Nationally, we know that that's the same. Everyone's been offered it on a volunteer basis because the Police Federation are really clear that officers are carrying a lot of kit all the time, and every time you ask them to carry something more, it has an impact on bodies, on mental health, and then if someone dies when you administer naloxone, that's another trauma that officer's got to carry. So it's not as simple as someone being mandated to do that, because there's so many complexities. I have spoken to the Director General of the IOPC to get reassurances that here in West Yorkshire and nationally, because I've got a national role that covers some of this, that officers won't be criminalised and that, and she's given us something that's there or thereabouts, but it's not 100% because every circumstance is different. So that's another risk to officers and staff agreeing to carry naloxone. So the costs of the nasal naloxone, I can't remember how much it is, but it's currently being covered by our Directors of Public Health. So that was one of the things we were able to get agreement on through the Combating Drugs Partnership. And if we were going to roll it out, then we would need them to continue to pay for that, because obviously it'd be an additional cost to policing that they don't have a budget for.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That's the end of the question, or end of the list of my questions under agenda item 5. As you can see, we've drifted all over the place, but everything seems to be interlinked. Oh, sorry, I'm telling you something then. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Policing Crime Plan performance measures. Alison, do you want to introduce this?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a regular item. Really happy to answer any questions. I've got my Wendy here, so I feel very confident.
Anything you want to say, Wendy?
No, this is Q1, so this is the data up to June 2025. What you'll notice on the graphs is we're trying to put as much national context in as we can as well. So alongside, and there is, you'll see on the Excel sheet, there is a brief overview of summer surge. So I'll just say that was from July. The next one is due on Sunday. Home Office gave us Sunday is the day the next one is due. But once we've sent that, we'll be sending it out for you as well, because I know you're all interested in what's happening in your various districts. So we can send that out as well. So that's on the papers. Hope it makes sense.
Okay, we'll come to the questions now. The first one is from Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. On page 2, the 3, crime and antisocial behaviour. Throughout West Yorkshire, we've been plagued over the past couple of months with fireworks. Every night, through until early hours of the morning, in some evidence that I have about a being accompanied by boy racers in souped up cars whizzing around residential estates, causing disturbance. I'm getting complaints from not my own residents because we're on the border of Leeds and Bradford, but also complaints from Bradford residents, which have enough fun with my own. What I'm disappointed about is that there seems to be a complete lack, unless you, Chief Constable, can assure me there is some police activity to tackle this. It is out of...
Understand.
I aren't anti-fireworks, not at all. I'm in favour of properly organised displays by properly constituted organisations with appropriate public liability insurance. But what I'm not happy about is that residents should be disturbed night after night after night, sometimes coming from establishments, I am told, that are licensed, that are venues for celebrations. They aren't licensed or permitted to cause a public nuisance. Now, I want to know what the police are going to do about it.
Can I just, before you come in on this, now that it's not operational, you're not operational, I understand that, but if you've got some observations on that, we would appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Clearly this is something that's raised with us many times. Tracy and I have written to successive governments, so we wrote to the last government and we've written to this government about legislation around fireworks because it's not working. Whatever the legislation is currently, it's not working. I am pretty anti-fireworks. I don't mind, a couple of times a year, New Year and a fire and bonfire night, but I don't really understand why you need another time. But obviously I'm only one for it, so there you go. But I do think that we need some stronger legislation around fireworks. And we need to ban the easy supply of very dangerous fireworks that are currently being brought into our communities. Licensing of properties, venues, wedding venues, whatever they are, that is a matter for local authorities. And so obviously I'm really happy to write to local authorities and ask them what criteria they're using to permit these, what monitoring they're doing of the licensing conditions thereafter. It really is a matter for the local authority members to take that to their local authorities and put that rigour into those processes because I think they're lacking at the moment. In terms of policing, it's really hard to police fireworks because people will ring you a mile away and you don't necessarily know where that is. And again, if it's a venue that's been licensed and can use fireworks for a wedding, it's not a crime, and then very difficult for the police to be able to address that. But I'm very happy for Chief Constable to come in on that plan.
I think it would be useful if you could write to that. I mean, local authorities have their own issues around it. I think it might be useful if there was a letter sent to them just asking what was... You had a question about the national chair of the CSE?
Yeah, the Chief Constable just going to respond on that.
All right,
Yeah, may or may not be the answer that you want, Councillor, but yeah, there's a joint responsibility between the local authority and police, and Noise Abatement Act is of council responsibility, licensing is council responsibility. ASB is not a criminal offence. However, you're exactly right, in that area there's been a 50% increase in fireworks reporting. It is causing nuisance, it is causing upset to residents. So we need to work, the neighbourhood policing teams are aware of it, they're aware of some of the premises, they're engaging with both of the local authorities involved. So we jointly need to do what we can with it within the law, set against all the other priorities and challenges that they've got. So I can't give you an assurance that we're going to solve it quickly, but we'll do what we can within the current legislation, and we'll certainly do what Alison's suggesting around changes to legislation to see if we can. But you're right, it's become a specific issue. We hope to work with the local authority and others to see what we can do to abate it, because I agree with you, it's not a problem.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the fairly comprehensive answer from both of you. However, venues might have licences, but they aren't licensed to commit antisocial behaviour. And a much firmer line needs to be taken with them, because they are breaking the law. And if I set off fireworks in my garden every night for the next 10 days, I would expect the PCSO, hopefully not 4 armed police officers, to knock on my door and say, Mr Carter, this is antisocial behaviour, it must stop. That doesn't seem to be happening, Chief Constable.
Can we just thank you?
No,
Yeah,
that's
can
not
we
fine.
just
I'm
yeah,
agreeing
can
to
we just
disagree.
say that can we just say that I think we're all you know sympathise with you, but I think the police are actually doing the best that they can. Fireworks are a very emotive issue. Licensing is with the authority for licences agreed. Now I understand what you're saying around, you know, if you did it every night, then I would complain if you were lived next door to me. I'm sure the police would respond.
But in the first instance, it is the environmental health
It is
department because it's
environmental.
not
We're going to say that.
But I thought that the local authority would knock on your door before police did.
Thank you, and I was going to say that. Andrew, did you have a question? I've written it down here about who is the national chair now of the child sexual
I thought we
exploitation.
agreed I'd take that on the next item.
Okay, thank you. Jackie,
Thanks for the voting.
That wasn't the question.
Thank you. I think mine's a relatively simple one. I was interested to read that the force tracks as a national leader regarding how many cases it refers to CPS. And I just wondered what percentage of these cases that are referred, do we know what percentage actually get to court?
So hold that thought because we're doing a presentation and you'll be able to ask the experts. So Simon and Colin are both here and they're waiting with bated breath, and if I start stealing the thunder, look, sorry that they were out of bed this morning to take a long time.
Yeah, told you it'd be simple. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't expecting that. In terms of theme 2, the confidence and satisfaction surveys, there's the new Your View survey being introduced. How will that better capture the sentiment locally, and how soon should we expect some data from it?
Yeah, we've been waiting a long time to get the RView survey up and running, so I'm really pleased that I wrote down the name of the people who got the contract. It is DJS Research. So they've started to collect the data. So they're just randomly going around West Yorkshire. So currently the information we're getting is if you've been a victim of crime, you might be asked about your experience of policing. We might get the crime survey of England and Wales data. We might get some ONS data. But we're not getting specific data from West Yorkshire unless they've been a victim of crime. So this is asking another just randomly what you think about policing, what you think about your local area. So it's specific to it can be very street level information, specific to each district, and you'll be able to get an understanding of how your residents are feeling about community safety, crime in your areas. We're expecting, so the first lot of data will be up to the end of September, and we're hoping by the end of October to have the first report. Yeah.
So the survey that we're undertaking, it'll take a year before we can, at district level, be sure of the data. So the data that Alison is talking about here is that first wave of data, but the local authorities, so the CSPs, are part funding this research, so we'll be giving it to them straight away. But it will be a year before we can really rely on the data. So the Crime Survey England and Wales data does have data at lower levels, but it's only statistically significant at force level, whereas this will be statistically significant at district level, which is the difference between the two. But we are asking a lot of the similar questions to what you see on the Crime Survey of England and Wales, but we have also included some cohesion questions, some more safety questions, that sort of thing, that the CSPs have asked us for. We've done this in conjunction with the CSPs. They've been on all the boards where we've been talking about what questions should we ask, how should we ask the question, that sort of thing. So they're very firmly involved with this Your Views, and they will be the main recipients of the data going forward.
Thank you. Anthony?
Thank you, Chair. Let me start by thanking you, Alison, Wendy and the team for another excellent performance report. I think we really starting to hit a sweet spot with this in terms of the feedback you've taken from the panel and seeing that in each report. It's really good work in my humble opinion. My question is around EEI. I know this is a thing that we've come back to time and time again. Just looking at the data from Police UK and data from GovUK, you explain the differences there, that's great. However, I do note that despite all our efforts, we've still got a significant ethnicity gap. And I'm just curious as to whether you are happy with the progress we're making and when we're going to see that gap closing even further so that the police force represent the community that they serve, which is our objective.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can talk about some of the track work further on the agenda, and satisfaction amongst black communities has improved 7.5% as a result of the work that West Yorkshire Police are doing with our communities. You know, obviously, it's not right to be satisfied until we have co-terminology between all our communities in terms of satisfaction, and we'd like to get as close to 100 as is you know, conceivably possible. You know, I'm not satisfied, and I know the Chief Constable is also not satisfied that there's a gap in satisfaction between our black and brown communities and our white British communities. And we know that that's a national problem, but the satisfaction gap is lower here than it is in many of our most similar group. And the work of the PrAP, I think, is helping us to close that gap. But not just that, it's also the recruitment strategy, it's also the work that the neighbourhood policing teams are doing. Because it's not just about how many you know, stop and search and use of force, which is clearly important. It's about the interaction with the public health as a police on a daily basis. I was looking at some of the satisfaction scores. West Yorkshire still believe that in times of crisis they can rely on West Yorkshire Police to see them right. You know, and again, I think we're slightly higher than our more similar group in relation to that. But there are some national issues that are impacting on trust and confidence in policing, which we don't all have control of. There are also, you know, national tensions with individual groups that mean that people, whether that's right or wrong, perceive their safety to be not as secure as maybe it was in the past, and that will impact on feelings of satisfaction with policing, whether that's West Yorkshire or anywhere else. So I think given the environment we're in, given the work that we're doing, I think that we're working at pace to bring that satisfaction gap down, but there's always more to do, and we need to continue on that on the road that we've started.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. In terms of the early guilty plea rates in West Yorkshire, we stand there. Any early indications at the moment as to...
They're going to tell you in the presentation. I just don't want to be sticking there.
Well, I'm just wondering if there's any early indications as to why we stand now as a county on that one.
Colin, do you want to?
The early guilty plea rate, particularly in Magistrates Court, is poor in West Yorkshire. It's taken up by the Efficiency and Effectiveness Group, the LCJB, as a high priority. It's a constant priority. It is the one key measure which is affected by every other measure. So as we pull one lever, it affects the other one, and that hits early guilty plea. We can reach peak performance in most other measures, but every time we attack one, it affects guilty plea at first. It's also part of the psychology of West Yorkshire, in that we kick the can down the road as a defendant. So we don't deal with it today, kick it down the road. Chances are the defendant won't come to court, the victim won't come to court, the case won't happen, and the case is dropped. So there's no punishment or outcome for that defender. That's also highlighted nationally when you look at court delays for trial cases. The case has been 2027, and in some cases last week down south was 2028 for a new trial. So if the defendant can kick the can down the road, it's reversing the defendant's psychology. Deal with it on day one, get it dealt with, then we can move on. And we've got to highlight that because that's the victim and witnesses that we're dragging down that road with us. But it's a very high priority.
Yeah, for those serious violent offences, that we know that there's a high attrition rate for those victims who are left for a long, long, long time, and some perpetrators are relying on that, and that's why they won't plead guilty, because hoping that the victim will withdraw. And sometimes that happens, but not always.
Thank you. I'd like to pick up on theme 4, supporting victims and vulnerable peoples. We spoke earlier on about young people with who have been homeschooled and also young people with special educational needs. If we think about young people generally as well who are not in education, employment and training, I know there's a huge amount of work that is being done within local authorities. So in Leeds there's quite a lot of work that's being done, but what things are being done on a West Yorkshire level to bring together some of that best practice and make sure that there's coordination between different authorities and the police, given that a lot of these issues do cut across local authority boundaries and there will be an impact in terms of police work?
So I wish the Mayor was here, and she would tell you for 2 hours all of the real work she's doing to improve access to ETE by young people, and a lot of that work cuts across the criminal justice system responsibilities that she has got. So yesterday I chaired the Yorkshire Reducing Reoffending Board, accommodation and employment and welfare and mental health support are the 3 key areas, obviously. Addiction, alcohol, drugs, one of the key areas that we discussed. We had a long discussion about employment training and education and the work we're doing across the piece. And the combined authorities, the IAF has got 3 combined authorities and 1 PCC area. The combined authorities are key to a lot of the work that's being undertaken currently to ensure that people, as they leave custody or even if they're in custody in the community, on a community order, get access to the right support, training, education, so that they can get the jobs that they hopefully will mean that they don't go back into the criminal justice system. So there's loads of work going on in prisons that we hear about regularly, lots of work placements. People will be surprised how many people are actually leaving prison to work and they go back to the prison at the end of the day. That's happening all over West Yorkshire and that's benefiting West Yorkshire residents who are in prisons in the wider Yath region. Our job is to improve that through this Yath board that I chair, and the work of the Mayor has been key to that, and we've got much better crossover now with the ETE team within WICA to help to fund some of the work. So I'll give you an example. Tracy funded a programme in Homewood a couple of years ago to get more bus drivers, particularly women bus drivers, because the operators are saying the reason why we can't stick to time is because we've got young drivers. So she ran training for 100 people on Homewood, but stipulated that ex-offenders had to be included in the cohort, and that was something that she agreed with the bus operators. And so we know that some ex-offenders were able to get them through that route. Similarly, Sky was saying that they couldn't get engineers to go to people's homes and put the Sky boxes and stuff up. And so she ran a huge training course across the whole West Yorkshire for Sky, and again stipulated that ex-offenders had to be part of that cohort. So it's definitely something that she thinks about, definitely something she includes in her strategy for ETE, not just for young people, but for people with an offending background. Because if you stop people offending, then obviously we're all safe, aren't we?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the once again an excellent report. Just want to ask in relation to communication and how you work with an organisation called Tempus Nova, which is a great organisation helping ex-offenders, and so just really want you to expand on the work that you communicate with them and work together with them.
Yes, so we do work with Tempus Nova. I meet them from time to time, obviously one of the delivery partners. We did have a small issue with West Yorkshire where they couldn't get referrals, so West Yorkshire Police was one of their really successful programmes. We have worked with West Yorkshire Police Work Aware and worked with West Yorkshire Police, and the taps turned, and I think we refer now more than anybody else. So we've got a really good relationship with Tempus Nova, and I do meet with them from time to time, so very happy to continue that relationship.
Okay, any further questions on this particular one?
Yes, Chair. Just something that came up in conversation, I don't know if I heard it right, Alison. Did you say that you've got 100 extra PCSOs?
Yeah, so the police guaranteed the neighbourhood policing guarantee, remembering this, I've come back off. Neighbourhood policing guarantee, which was announced in January. Our share was £8.5 million. And so we had to say what we would give for that. So we've got 100 additional neighbourhood policing officers, 45 specials, and yeah, we've delivered, I think, about 90 of those, 95 of those officers.
Yeah, no, they're all there.
Oh, they're all there now, so G-Con's will.
Yeah, so it's 100 police constables into neighbourhood policing as part of the target. We want to experienced police constables, and we've delivered that. But as I said at the last panel, as you'll see in the budgetary papers, we've still got reduction in reducing PCSOs. So there'll be 89 less PCSOs in neighbourhood policing this year. So it's 100 in and 89 out. And also the movement of those officers is causing us a challenge in our response policing because they can only come from one place. And that's response policing, but that was all a requirement to meet the grant. So it's welcome because there's 100 extra into neighbourhood policing, but it doesn't help with the budgetary challenges we've got about the overall numbers there.
Yeah. We did try to use it to reduce
No,
and we are getting 100 new police officers, but up to that
you referenced PCSOs in the NTFF back in February. It was presented as being minus 79 for this year and for the next 2 years afterwards. So that's still the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've reported that back to the Home Office. We got them to come and visit us. We made clear that PCSO numbers will be still reduced. The benefit of having the experienced PCs, of course, in the neighbourhood policing teams is that we've got experienced people who have come from across West Yorkshire with all the specialisms that offers into neighbourhood policing, including investigative experience, road policing experience, safeguarding experience, and that's really beefing up the capacity in neighbourhood policing. So that will be positive for the public, but obviously we give with one hand and take with the other.
And I just wanted to say as well, I agree with Anthony, an excellent report, really well put together, lots of detail there. And it's nice that you put in bits like under the working partners, some of the highlights of some of the, it's a bit dry sometimes, all the graphs, so it's quite nice to have a bit of detail in there about what's going on. It might benefit from being numbered in the appendix, so if we have to refer to the pages aren't numbered, so that might be something you can pick up on the next one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No further questions then on agenda item 6. We will move on to agenda item 7. And I believe we have a presentation here.
Yes, let us find the... Yes, please. So this is Police and Crime Plan Priority 3, supporting victims and witnesses. This is the final priority in the current plan. And so we want to tell you about some of the work we're doing. So there's a report there, but we felt it was going to be brought to life much better, especially the work we're doing with the local criminal justice board and the work with our criminal justice partners in CPS, HMCTS, probation, etc. If we gave a presentation on some of the successes. I can't stress where we've come from and where we are now in terms of the improvements in outcomes for victims and survivors, but also the relationships that we've built, particularly with CPS, have really brought home these the successes that we're going to tell you about today. Lots more to do, we're not progressing, but we do think that you'll be impressed by some of the improvements that have been made. So over to Simon and Colin. And Colin works for West Yorkshire Police for the services local criminal justice board.
I live with the police, but independent.
That is independent.
Can you just use the microphone so we can all hear?
Sorry, I believe Simon's going to start.
Hi everybody.
Afternoon.
So I'm Simon Jessup, I'm Alison's Criminal Justice and Victims Lead, and this is...
I'm Colin Baxter, I'm the Partnership Performance Manager for West Yorkshire Criminal Justice Board. Although I live with the police and the police staff, I'm actually independent of police. I work across all criminal justice agencies, which comes under Alison under the LCJB.
Got it. So today we're going to talk to you about the local criminal justice board. I don't know what the knowledge base here is around sort of that organisation, but we'll sort of take you through fairly high level about it. So can we just move on to the next slide, please? Okay. So the local criminal justice board, in its current iteration, falls out of the Police Reform Social Responsibility Act of 2011, the same act that brought PCCs in, albeit I think in some form or other LCJBs have been going for much longer than that. So there's duty in law for partners to come together, criminal justice partners to come together, but interestingly, albeit in most cases deputy mayors or PCCs will chair the LCJB, there's no responsibility to do so in law. So it's very much a common power bringing people together, and it's the responsibility of the individual agencies to engage properly in this. So you'll see, if you look at the chart, and I do apologise for the LCGB in there. So the executive board is chaired by Alison Lowe, and then you've got senior execs really from all the organisations in criminal justice, which are, as you'd imagine, police, Crown Prosecution Service, Probation Service, we have the prison governors locally, youth offending team managers locally, and then victim services, restorative justice, and where we can, defence counsel as well are involved in this particular problem. So things come into that board, so obviously we're aware, aren't we, of the pressure on the criminal justice system at the moment. We're aware of various different, but in fact it's very much shifting sands at the minute legislatively. So you've got a couple of reports that have been brought out recently. So the sentencing review by David Thorpe, and then of course the courts review by Sir Brian Levison. All these are having a real impact on criminal justice. We're going to see very shortly more people convicted outside of prison on community sentences, and we've got the pressures that we know around issues such as accommodation that Alison mentioned earlier, and training and employment. So from the executive board, we move down to the efficiency and effectiveness board, which Colin's going to talk to you about in a minute. Then we've got the victim and witnesses group, the reducing reoffending rehabilitation board, the criminal justice and mental health forum, and you'll see there's coming down from the efficiency and effectiveness group, we've got the joint meeting, the joint operation improvement meeting between police and CPS, which is really key. And then from the reducing reoffending partnership board, the district local authority reducing reoffending board, which I'll talk about in a bit. And I think the real strength of our partnership is that you'll see there we've got people from all different organisations chairing these boards, which I think is really, really important because of what they bring. So if we move down, Colin, we go to efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah, no worries. The efficiency and effectiveness group is essentially tripartite agencies, so police, courts, CPS, so it looks at the front end of the criminal justice system, from the offending through to getting conviction or otherwise. Saying that, probation and youth offending do have invites into the group and do attend occasionally. The main aim is to drive performance and efficiencies at the front end, as I said, the direction is taken from. So we don't decide what we're doing. It's the National Criminal Justice Board, Ministry of Justice, the APCC, NPCC, HMICFRS and HMICPS, and all the national organisations that all feed in what we have to do locally. We monitor what we're doing through large amounts of data, through the joint charging dashboards, TSJ dashboards, listings, regional managers, HMCTS national data, Ministry of Justice data, and we actually look at around 30 to 35,000 data points at each meeting to try and pull out where we're going wrong, what we need to do and why it's affecting. As I said before, pulling one lever will affect 3 other areas, so it's not straightforward. So what we would do, if we set the criminal justice front end into separate parts, the charging part first, that's the police getting the right file to CPS in the best timeline to allow for a charging decision at the earliest opportunity and avoid this constant to and fro, backwards and forwards. can I have this information, can I have that, so on and so forth. In West Yorkshire, we've actually got the third highest volume behind London and Manchester, so it's not a small task. For first triage, which is making sure we get the right file, the right information CPS first time, we're first in the country. And that's a big mark. 93.6% of files are accepted at first opportunity. Nationally, that figure is under 70, 69% nationally. So way in front, with a higher volume as well. Action plans we've got reducing the charge rate that was asked earlier is 65%. Nationally, that's 54. We're ranked 5th in the country, and again with the third highest volume. So again, not easy. Our NFA rate, so where CPS decide not to prosecute, is falling. We're ranked 13th in the country on that one. The PRFI is police request further information, or CPS request further information from the police, is now 11th. That was quite high, and in the last year that's come down because of communication between police and CPS. We're not writing to each other, asking for information. We're actually doing something technical and picking a telephone up and getting the information quickly. It's not in the national operating model. It's been brought back in West Yorkshire. There's an issue that's been identified. It's been brought in and it's working. We're doing really well on that one. We've got a number of meetings looking at file quality, DGA compliance, statement quality, again to make sure we get the right information on the right forms to CPS at the first opportunity. That's a constant, and we keep doing that. On to listings, so we've got the right file, we've got the charging decision, getting it into court without delay. We follow transforming summary justice, which is a process where a guilty or not guilty case gets into court within 14 days for guilty, 28 days for not guilty. And the timeline 14 and 28 is set by the Ministry of Justice, and we've had to work at that, and it's hard to keep that figure, because obviously we don't charge the same number of cases every week. It goes up and down, but we have to have the same number of courts each week, so managing that difference. So technically, we have a backlog of 216 cases as of last Monday. We normally have around 1,500 cases in the pot going to court at any one time. At the beginning of August, that backlog was 500. So that's coming down, we're getting that right, particularly after the holiday period. All cases in Leeds for the first time in quite a few months are actually within the 14-28 timescales. It's doing really well. And we've got 2 issues in 2 of the courts that we're working on, and we've got plans in place to sort those. But once we're in court, the listing of cases beyond first hearing, we can't do anything about that. That's a judicial function. That's decided by the judges as to when we would get the case to trial. So to avoid getting to a second hearing or a trial and getting it guilty at first opportunity is key. If we can do that, we can manage it without the judicial. I'm not going to say interference, but they don't need to book a trial, essentially. One of the ways we get around that is the TSJ group, which sits alongside the joint under E&E. They visit courts every 6 weeks. They go to Leeds and they go to Bradford. And they will sit in courts, that's police court, CPS and probation, sit at the back of the courtroom and watch what happens in court. Identify whether there's any areas that need training, anything that could be changed, anything that needs implementing. And in fact, here today, I've been in Leeds courtroom number 4 doing that. In fact, that's where we're going when I finish this, because it's today in Leeds. So, backlog. There's a lot in the press about backlog. You hear that all the time. Yes, there is a backlog in West Yorkshire, and yes, some cases are listed for trial well into the future. However, in West Yorkshire, that's much less than other police force areas, a lot less, even local forces. If we use 2021 as a baseline, we've got an increased backlog of 15%. So we have 15% more cases now waiting for trial than we did in 21, just after COVID. Nationally, that figure is 27.5%, almost double to where we are. Last year alone, we went up 3.5%, nationally it rose 11%. Some forces not too far away from West Yorkshire are looking at increases since 2021 of 58 and 68%. So we're doing well in West Yorkshire on that compared to other forces. E&E continues to drive performance and effectiveness across the front end of the criminal justice system, both in striving to get the best possible file or case to court in the best possible time frame, and then to deliver the appropriate outcome in the smallest possible time frame. And at all times, the key driver is ensuring that victim and witnesses are front and centre of everything that group does, and anything we do doesn't affect victims and witnesses where possible. And that's it, E&E.
Okay, it's just worth to put some sort of practical example to that really. If you don't get the front end right with the file quality being right when it first gets to CPS, then CPS send it back. If the file's not right, but the papers are in order, the CPS will send it back. There's 28-day turnaround for that to happen. Each way. So yeah, so it comes back from CPS, the police send it back 28 days. It comes back from CPS, the police have 28 days to do something with that file and get it ready again. And then 28 days later, so they'll send it back, and then CPS have 28 days. So straight away you're into months. Naturally, when you think about victim attrition, and you think about the pressure on victim services, the sooner we can get that case into a place where we can have a first hearing with that defendant, the absolute better, because as we know, while things aren't as bad as other places in West Yorkshire, still not great if you're waiting for a trial, which could be, a year, 18 months and 2 years in some cases. So that just sort of puts something on the thank you. Thanks, Colin. I could just go again now to Victim Witnesses Group. So nicely segues in this, because the Victim Witnesses Group, chaired by Pauline McCullough, who's the RASO, so the Rape and Serious Sexual Offences Senior Crown Prosecutor for this region. And the next one, please, Linda. Thank you. Our graduates tried to make a really good presentation, but I can't do it in bits, so I'll just have to bring it all up. So this is where we talk about victims' journey, really. What does that look like? How are people supported? And how can we make sure that more people are comfortable to get to court and achieve justice for themselves and the family? So, just an example there of who is involved in the group. From time to time other people come in, but that's the basic group of people. So there's also some legal requirements on all organisations engaged with criminal justice. So I know it's not in order, but I'll just come to Victims Code of Practice first. So this group deals with the Code of Practice. So there's 12 codes of practice that criminal justice agencies have to be aware of. They don't all apply to everybody, but there's some real key ones. So we produce the data for that comes to the meeting. We discuss with partners around how that works. So particularly things like victim contact, which I think West Yorkshire Police are somewhere in the region of 97% in terms of that victim contact within 7 days, which is really, really important in terms of that engagement piece. And then we look at things like, so vulnerable victims, it's really important that one, we understand what a vulnerable victim is. So, anyone who is the victim of sexual offence or a domestic abuse offence or a child are all per se vulnerable victims. But as you can imagine, in terms of victims and witnesses, there's a whole category of other people who are also vulnerable for other reasons. And they are entitled to special measures of court. And working through the Victims and Witnesses group, and working together in that group, the response around special measures from policing at the front end and from the CPS a bit further on down the line has massively improved in West Yorkshire. So every case where special measures might be appropriate is reviewed by a special measures advisor in West Yorkshire Police that works in the victims team there. And she works extensively as well with the CPS and prosecutors and with the police in terms of file prep to make sure that the right documents are in place, so that that document actually gets in front of the judge So the judge can assess at that point in time whether or not those special measures can be applied. And those special measures might be a video link into court, it might be just you know, other ways of shielding the person from the defendant and various other ones. But essentially that's a huge thing. And if you look at, I'm not sure if Colin alluded to it, but certainly in terms of our victims who are staying on board now with the cases, we are up there, aren't we, in terms of top of the shop around that in the country. And we are losing now. We used to be in a position in West Yorkshire where the police kept more victims, we managed to keep victims engaged, then the drop off in the court process. Actually, that is now improving massively. I don't have the figures to hand, but I've seen them somewhere.
Yeah, typically...
It's in the report, I think.
It's in the report, isn't it?
Yeah. You can still say it.
All right. Typically, we lose victims at 3 points in the system. Through the investigation, from charging to getting to court, and then once we get to court. So 3 elements of when we lose victims. In West Yorkshire, we lose 19% through the investigation period. Nationally, it's nearly 40%. So we're keeping victims engaged through the investigation. From charging to court, we're pretty much the same. And at court, we lose very few once we're actually at court. So I think overall we lose about, I think it's 56%, don't quote me on these two figures. 46% we lose, and it's 57% nationally.
Thank you. I mean, the work's been superb, and honestly, the work that's been done around special measures, I think, is responsible for a lot of those gains without any doubt whatsoever. And some of it's been really class-leading. There's a whole presentation that the person responsible for that in West Yorkshire Police will do for you, and perhaps maybe that might be a good idea, because it's class-leading. And case studies, you know, from time to time organisations will bring case studies to us, really useful to have a look at and sort of forensically look at where things have gone right and where things have gone wrong in terms of how victims are treated. Because actually you can tick all the boxes and you can completely miss the point sometimes, and that's the sort of thing we pick up through those. So if we can move on to the next one.
I think it's important to say that when we first started, we didn't have case studies, but I now speak to all the sector and say, if you've got case studies where things are failing, you need to tell us, and then we use that to hold our partners to account, and they didn't like it. They didn't like being exposed in that way, so they made sure that they weren't exposed in that way, so they really stepped up. And also, we had an action plan right at the beginning of this process. Colleen, Simon and I, we decided we needed a proper action plan for you know, at least 12 months and beyond, identifying what the priorities were for the whole partnership. And we did an away day, we're going to do another one again soon, but we did an away day. People came together and we had that joint focus around what our priorities were. So there was a commitment, a joint commitment to achieve the things that we achieved. But the leadership of ACC Pat Twiggs and CPS Regional Director Jan, it was Jan Longing. Yeah, they were absolutely instrumental in making it work, because the relationship was not there before they came into post. Sat under that action plan and obviously being held to account within the LCJB, they decided to get that together, and they did.
Thanks. Okay, so this is the next subgroup, West Yorkshire Youth and Reoffending Rehabilitation Partnership Board. Easy for me to say. It's a long title. Essentially, what you see across the top of that are the priorities drawn from the HMPPS, so probation, essentially, prisons and probation, their priorities, which we adopted a couple of years ago to give us some sort of framework to have a look at this. There are some performance indicators there, which I've not included on purpose, because actually we're not meeting any of them just yet, but this is about moving towards, and it's about, within this structure, the LCJB structure, it's about helping other organisations and helping us to work together better to improve. So, the key work that's been done in the last sort of 2 years, 12 months, 2 years, is essentially to get the structure right. So, we've got a county board, but we haven't until fairly recently had a local criminal justice board in each local authority, which is really important because that's where all the work happens. It's where the partners sit. If we think about where funding goes from the combined authority in terms of education and training, and where it goes in terms of accommodation, it all flows into, currently the way it works now is it all flows into local authorities with a couple of exceptions. So the partnership has to be right there in terms of reducing reoffending, because criminal justice partners obviously can't do that on their own. It's about those other needs that need to be met. So I'm really pleased to say that in each local authority, we have 4. We have Leeds, Wakefield, Bradford and Calderdale and Kirklees, all now have reducing reoffending boards, and are continuing to build and strengthen as we go through. So some of the things that we're looking at in terms of that, obviously I talked about we call it the prison crisis. It's what it's called in the news. Essentially, we know that there's overcapacity there. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a number of different programmes to reduce the numbers of people in prison, all of which have impacted all the organisations that support them, support people coming out of prison. The other aspect I've just mentioned is that, of course, what's needed, if you like, to reduce the throughput into prison is much more work early doors around reducing people from, stopping people from getting into crime, and that's a piece actually which has been mentioned in Brian Levison's report, mentioned 38 times around out of court resolutions for people. So again, a priority of this group is to look at, and as much as we can, develop more pathways. West Yorkshire Police have just brought in the intervention hub, which will go some way towards that, and that is basically a video-based learning tool for people. And officers can choose the correct one for people to use if they've been engaged in minor crime. But that doesn't sort out the people who are on the edge of offending because they've got multiple and complex needs. And that's a piece of work that we are constantly looking at and looking for where capacity lies in the system to make that happen. We've got some good examples, and I think we've just asked the local authorities to have a look internally and see who they're commissioning and what their opportunities are to provide supportive practices for people to help them get out of that route into crime. So in terms of accommodation, done a lot of work with the Combined Authority on the 5th of March, so this time last week, we had a accommodation symposium with the West Yorkshire Homelessness Forum and the West Yorkshire Housing Partnership and a load of other partners, chaired by Alison, to talk about how we can work better around people coming out of prison, and actually people who would be entitled to community sentences if it wasn't for the fact they have no accommodation. And of course, we know we've got strict populations, we know there's not enough accommodation, so this is about trying to work better together. And one of the things that came out of that meeting was around some basic common standards throughout West Yorkshire around the entitlement of people who have been in custody or are criminally experienced, if you like, around their right to housing. It's not the same across West Yorkshire. It's different in different housing associations. It's different in different local authorities, albeit there is an overriding duty. We'll properly put that together and bring it back to those partners with what they've told us. We'll put it back to them and see where that takes us. But it was the first time really that's ever happened in terms of that engagement on a wider basis with criminal justice. And then just in terms of employment and skills, just pick out there that again, we're now talking with the Combined Authority around opportunities to fund particular roles in local authorities, particularly around the missing piece, which is in HMPPS, they fund prison employment leads, but there's nothing that sits on the other side of that. And then there's a real conversation about where does the probation, where does the probation responsibility end and local authority responsibility begin around employment and skills. And I think possibly we're funding things in different places and we could do much better by doing that together. But those conversations are ongoing. We have just done an exciting, so again, thinking about how to do better without more funding, we've just developed, or just about to pilot, an out-of-court resolution process for non-opioid drug users, which will be, so the combating drugs partnerships already exist, as we know, in each local authority. We're going to use the capacity there to refer people into from out of court. So that might be people who've been caught with drugs possession, or it could be that there's a criminogenic factor, shoplifting for example, that's someone that we're aware of, and we can funnel people into an organisation and a service provider that already exists and is already funded, so it's absolutely cost neutral. but potentially we'll reduce roof lending that way. And then women, do a lot of work around women, as you might imagine, given the drive for org in our county. We have an out of courts pilot which is funded directly through the Combined Authority, this one, and we have InReach into, so I'll just put that on first. That is an education pilot, essentially for women who committed minor offences, and it gets them to level 1 or level 2 in terms of reading and writing and maths, and there's also then routes and referral routes through that into debt management, DWP and work, hopefully. That's one pilot that's likely to spread across the launched in Leeds next, I think, is taking that one. And we also have InReach, it's not mentioned there, into both Newhall and, which is the women's prison, but also Wealdstone, again around employment. And I mentioned there already, haven't I, early intervention. Again, that is, I think, in terms of, so we work, Alison's already mentioned the work that we do in the region, in Yap, around this. Just lost my train of thought. Sorry. We'll move on. Anyway, we'll move on. Okay, then.
Can I just say,
yes.
I mean, interesting as it is, we've now had nearly 30 minutes.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Can I possibly ask you, because I know that members have got a list of questions based on the report. If we can move it on a little bit, please.
Fine. Okay, so Criminal Justice and Mental Health Forum, this was put in place essentially to help engage the VCSE sector around right care, right person. Right care, right person, as we know, is around getting the right response to mental health crisis cases. We know that West Yorkshire, all police services were engaged in that for a significant portion of their time, and this forum was put in place to try and get, as I said, to try and engage the VCSE sector in that. And essentially, they're holding the football a lot of the time. So, and actually, we realised that you could argue it's someone else's responsibility, but it wasn't happening. We also look at performance in terms of policing and mental health in custody, as you can see there. And then we're looking at how we might understand how mental health and missing people glove together, if you like, in a response to that. Thank you.
Is that it?
I thought it better be, because you just said.
No, it's just I've got a list. I know that some of the stuff you've said is going to beg quite a few questions.
Yes.
It's certainly begged, well, the report itself has begged a few from me, which I'm going to ask my questions first, if I may. And my questions are based on the report 4.2, the repeat victims. I'm really pleased that across West Yorkshire it appears to be coming down, because it's been so high over the last 5 to 10 years. However, I did actually listen to on Radio 4 a programme around the DASH risk assessment, and a lot of police authorities, Alison, are using the DASH risk assessment, and it's failing in some ways, because it's not asking some of the questions around were weapons present, ethnicity, etc. And if you hit the 14, then you're high, but if you're just short of the 14, then you know, and we are missing out on that. And a lot of police authorities have moved to DARA, which is recommended by the domestic abuse providers. I just wondered if we are pursuing that course of action.
Okay, thanks very much for that. So just to say that DASH is there's been a lot of evaluation, is about 26% efficacious. So that means it gets it right 26% of the time, so it's not very good when you're talking about domestic abuse. This was actually a tool that was developed by the VOG sector many years ago, so Women's Aid and other partners developed this DASH tool originally. But we know that it's got limitations, and so they and other academic partners and policing have been working on the DARA for some time, which they hope will improve the evaluation of risk. I should say that DASH and DARA are not used in isolation. It's not just about what they say, it's about partnership, the coming together of the multi-agency panels to talk about both the perpetrator and victim and other information that is shared. And in the end, it's a human being who makes a decision about what the risk is. So if it got to 13 and there are other factors, that person would still be assessed as a high risk. It's not just about the number. I understand that we are moving to DARA in West Yorkshire, but it's a big process. It's a lot of training because obviously we've got a lot of our staff in the safeguarding unit who will be utilised mostly. So yes, when the training is completed, and then also we want to get it on people's handheld devices so they can do it with the victim when you're interviewing them, so that you don't have to keep chopping and changing and giving people a disjointed service. So it will be. But more importantly, as I've said before, we're also piloting the DART, the Domestic Abuse Analytical Tool, which West Yorkshire Police and the Cambridge Analytical, something of those names, I can't remember, have been working on together for about 6 years. And in fact, Wendy had a role to play in the development of the idea about this 6 years ago when she worked for West Yorkshire Police. If the evidence of the testing period comes to fruition, then something like 89% of the analysis from this tool will show whether or not somebody is high risk or not. And it's about utilising the resources that you've got. Clearly, we haven't got enough police officers, 52,000 domestic abuse cases reported each year, 6,200 and something police officers. There's a disconnect there. You've got to be able to focus resources on the most high-risk cases. So the tool that you're using is critical. So whether it's DASH or whether it's DARA, let's see what DARA's efficacy rate is. But we know that DARA will be game-changing if the testing that is currently happening in Leeds, it was rolled out in August, very early days. Hopefully in about 6 months' time we might begin to get a little bit of data, but obviously it'll be a very, very long term project to see whether or not it's working. But it's really exciting and hopefully it will.
I know we ask a lot of our police, they are the first responders when it comes to that. And I know we want to train them in everything, but it's a big thing for me. The other thing I wanted to ask, and again it's at 4.4, 4.5, and that's rape victims. I know that some are falling out, quite a few fall out before it gets to anywhere really, and a lot might be down to the CPS as well. I watched 24 hours in police custody and I know exactly what you're up against. But what can we do to try and keep, and I know you must be doing something, but to try and keep engaged with those rape victims so we can actually get it to a conviction? And just on the back of that as well, in your presentation you talked about victims being screened and so on and so forth. Do we have any we used to have safe rooms across West Yorkshire where the victim didn't have to actually go into court. Yes. Do we still have those? So that's two questions.
So it's all part of Section 28 arrangements. And as I say, we are, using your terminology, class leading on Section 28 because of all the investment and the work that we've been doing on that. So we are better than other forces on rape attrition, as has been described by Colin, but obviously it's still work to be done because something, did you say 46 or 47% of cases fall down because of attrition by victims, so we need to do more. There was a piece of work done by the Victims Commissioner last year or maybe the year before that said one of the key ways to keep victims engaged was through use of ISVAs and in domestic abuse cases, IDVAs. So the Mayor has doubled the numbers of ISVAs and IDVAs that we have here in West Yorkshire. We've just put the ISVA contracts out to tender, so we're awaiting notification of who's going to win that contract. But that is critical to keeping victims engaged. Our Women's Safety Unit, which is a partnership between West Yorkshire Police, WICA and the VRP, is looking all the time at best practice examples from the rest of the country, looking at training using RASO principles across West Yorkshire to keep driving those, those best outcomes, working with our partners to see what more we can be doing. The structural problems of the delays to the court system, are a big barrier. But you will always have attrition no matter how good you are, no matter what you do. And we just need to get that number lower all the time. And we know that rape cases are increasing nationally, not just here in West Yorkshire. I think some of that is about West Yorkshire Police being better at helping victims identify that, you know, I was crying, but it happened anyway, that's rape. Or I said no, but, you know, I didn't say much, that's rape. So I think the police are much better at helping victims understand what's happened to them, especially in a domestic situation, because you know, many partners think it's not rape if you're in a relationship or if you're married, when of course it is. So I think that that is part of the reason for the increase, and it's part of the reason why West Yorkshire Police is looking all the time to how to improve its training, how to improve its practice, and that's one of the priorities of the Women's Safety Unit.
Just in terms of that learning. So, well, first of all, early investigative advice now is available from the CPS around all our cases. So that's where it becomes more of a joint investigation. Obviously, there's an investigator leading it in West Yorkshire Police, but there's the opportunity to discuss the case and decide on where it's going. Early doors, which is really important, and is resulting in more of those cases getting through the CPS for a child decision first time, rather than coming back for action plans, which again is really important. The timescales we talked about. West Yorkshire Police now one single person, perhaps with a little bit of help, but doing the victims' right to review process to make sure we've got consistency there, and there's learning that comes out of it. Victims' right to review is available to anybody under the Victims Code if you're not happy with the decision that's been made, either by the police, which is the police officer doing the victims' right to review work, or by the CPS, in which case the CPS will do the victims' right to review work. There's much more work being done to look at where the common themes are there. And there are cases which then go forward as a result of further investigation after that victim's right to review.
Yeah, and we sometimes trigger that. So we have regular meetings with CPS, and we'll say we've got this case in casework, they're not happy about your decision, and we push them, and sometimes that does lead to a review and a discharging decision. So it is working.
John, do you want to come in?
It's okay, it's been covered, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We move on to other questions then. Yeah, Jackie?
Just referring back to the presentation, the Reducing Reoffending Partnership Bond, is there a restorative justice person on that one?
Yes. Yeah, there's restorative justice involved in just about all those boards we've just seen. Yeah, and if they're not part of the membership, then obviously we have a very close relationship with our provider. So we have those means of contact anyway.
Thank you. That wasn't my actual question. Sorry, I keep forgetting to put the mic on, and everybody's doing it as a courtesy to me, sorry. This might be just a typo. Numbers are not my thing. But page 4, out of court resolutions, and we've got some figures. It's out of court 2.5 on page 4. We've got some figures that say young conditional caution 179, adult conditional caution 1,801, and then young conditional caution again 6,163. I don't get it basically.
Well, as well you shouldn't, because it's not right, is it?
So
it doesn't matter how often you proofread these documents, sometimes you miss something. So we think we'll check on this and we'll feed it back to you. But we think the second one, which is 6163 for youth conditional caution, should be youth community resolution. Youth community resolution, which isn't a sanction as such. It's an opportunity.
Thanks for the clarity on that one. Trevor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, first of all, the triage acceptance figures are an excellent result. It wasn't so long ago that we sat around this table and it was a big problem to sort out, and it's taken several years, but you've done a great job on that, so really well done for that. I think my question, I think you probably answered it earlier when we were talking about naloxone on page 6, and you were saying about it, the narrative there said about it being rolled out, extended to all districts of West Yorkshire. My question is about how can that be if it has to be volunteer officers? And I think you've explained it earlier that subject to officers volunteering to carried it will be extended across West
And there's a lot of goodwill.
Yeah,
A lot of goodwill. Officers and PCSOs, you know, they want to save lives. That's why they become police officers.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oliver?
Thank you. I was really interested in the presentation and what you're saying about reducing reoffending relationships with housing providers. Obviously, accommodation is a massive challenge. I wanted to ask you about things that can be done in terms of not just thinking about this from the point of view of someone who is an offender, but also thinking about other residents as well in places where people may be moving to. That is, those are obviously delicate relationships, and especially where you have different people with different vulnerabilities. So what work can be done in terms of engagement with other residents as well to make sure that there are sustainable solutions?
First of all, you can't tell residents that someone is moving in with an offence, because that's breach of their human rights, and there's legislation around rehabilitation of offenders, etc. But of course, we've all got people with criminal convictions living next door to us. Many of those people will be living, you know, brilliant lives, working hard, paying the taxes, and not getting involved in the criminal justice system again because they made a mistake, they paid the price, and you know, I'm not entitled to know, and you're not entitled to know. Clearly, when people are housed in communities, those organisations making decisions about where people are housed will make a judgment about, is this the best place to put them. So when I used to house people across the whole of West Yorkshire in my role at Foundation Housing, we would look at placing sex offenders away from schools, away from, you know, areas that were highly vulnerable. But you know, it's not always possible to do things as neatly as that. And also, it's about the access to accommodation, which is really, really limited, and sometimes you don't always have the choice. It's about making sure that where there are conflicts, you've got support providers providing the accommodation to the individual so that they are able to live successfully, able to work with communities to iron out any issues, and where it's not possible for that person to live in that area, we can work with local authorities, other registered providers to move those people on somewhere else that's safer for them and safer for the communities. But you cannot have a situation where you have a community meeting where you say, right, John's coming out of prison, is a sex offender, or is a burglar, or is a whatever. What do you think about it? That cannot happen.
Just to be clear, I definitely wasn't advocating that. I think, and of course, you're absolutely right on this. I think the issue I was thinking of more is if it's people where there has been coverage in the press, and where if people do a simple Google search, they can find out that information. I think thought needs to be given to that where the information is public.
Yeah, but obviously, anyone can choose to live in a private rented flat. They don't need to go through one of our processes. If someone's got a family member they're going to stay with, and it's next to a nursery and they've got sex, again, you know, it's about us managing that with the community as best we can. But it's an imperfect world.
Charlie, if I may
Just a second. I've got someone else before.
It was on the same issue, actually.
Is it a national issue? It's not a specific?
West Yorkshire.
Thank you.
On the same issue that Councillor Edwards raised. Isn't the issue really that the lightness and sureness of touch of the housing department, and that you can do all you've just said, which I entirely agree with, but the whole thing breaks down if in the housing departments there isn't that level of expertise to understand those issues that you've related to. Isn't that the problem? Can't something be done in terms of, I don't know, building some sort of proper response within the housing department to the issue of rehousing offenders?
So most housing departments are generalist providers, so you provide for the whole of your community, so that specialism tends not to exist. And that's why local authorities procure, commission specialist organisations to deliver housing support, and that might be to women fleeing domestic abuse, that might be to offenders, that might be to any number of cohorts. The problem is most local authorities are not commissioning fault offenders. Obviously, they've suffered cut after cut after cut, so there is a process of who's the most worthy going on. I'm not making a judgment, it's just a fact. So vulnerable women, they tend to get accommodation, but vulnerable ex-offenders don't seem to be in the same category. So most local authorities now do not commission specific accommodation, and I know that because I delivered that specific accommodation when I worked for Foundation. All those contracts have gone, all that specific commissioning has gone, even mental health housing commissioning has gone because it's seen now as a responsibility of health, so local authorities won't commission that. So we've all got responsibility to recognise that the funding's not there, but where there is that specialism, it behoves local authorities and other big housing providers to buy in that expertise so that they are making sure that everyone is safe and they're meeting their responsibilities. But it's, as I say, not a perfect world.
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. There were lots of acronyms. However, I did get the gist of the good work and achievements you're making, and especially the effective communication with the CPS. So well done on that. So I did get that bit of the, so a lot of acronyms I ain't got a clue. So anyway, my question is really, what measures are in place to raise awareness of domestic abuse where the victim is afraid to reach out? I came across a lady who lost a friend who committed suicide because her friend was afraid to reach out and report the matter.
Yeah, I mean that's a terrible situation. There are many victims of domestic abuse, male and female, who for different reasons don't reach out. You know, men it's a massive stigma. It's a stigma for women, but different level of stigma for men, of course. We commission lots of providers across West Yorkshire to work with victims of domestic abuse, and part of that is about communicating the work they're doing in West Yorkshire so that people who might not be victims today but could be victims tomorrow know that those services exist. I know that lots of local authorities also fund, CRASAC, for example, Sarsville, Leeds Women's Aid, and part of the funding requires them to communicate and publish the services to the wider community. So it's not just about talking to the people that you're serving today, it's also about recognising that people might not know that you're there. And that's why, for example, charities have got those stickers on the back of toilet doors, why there's a lot of information online, some of it's hidden. So there's lots of work goes on that's commissioned by the third sector, from the third sector, and stuff that they do independently of those commissioning arrangements because they know how important it is. But obviously you've got a role as counsellors too to get those messages out, and if you're talking to a victim about being rehoused and she lets slip or he lets slip, it's because of domestic abuse, then if you skill yourself up and get the knowledge about what options there are for that person, then you'll be doing them a service.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. You only get one opportunity. I think if somebody opens up to you, anybody, about being abused by partners, then arm yourself with the information of how you can help that person. Because as I say, you only get one opportunity. I think that somebody will know. I'm going to stop it there because that's been quite interesting, and it's good to see what's happening around this particular priority of supporting witnesses. So thank you for that. I'm going to move on now to item 8, which is current issues. From you, Alison?
Yeah, I'll be brief, just to feedback on a few of the things we've been doing since the last meeting. So we had our Vision Zero event in Leeds. Thank you to the chair, Eileen Taylor, who attended, and I think a couple of people came that I might not have been there because it was all day. Hundreds of people came. It was a really good day. The sun shone. So Vision Zero messaging is definitely getting out there. It was brilliant. We even had a wedding, so you can't ask for more than that. We had a housing symposium last Friday with a lot of housing providers and probation to start those conversations about how do we house ex-offenders and people on community orders because there's a dearth of accommodation, and we came up with some really good ideas. Actually, Wakefield were leading the way in many ways, and we were able to share some of that good practice. We're going to follow up now on an action plan, agreements, pledges from those that were there about next steps. So hopefully we'll come back and report back on some of that good practice that is going to come out as a result. Next Friday, we're holding Baroness Casey Next Steps event with survivors of CSCA, West Yorkshire Combined Authority, and we're doing that with our parliamentarians. So all 22 MPs from West Yorkshire have been invited to listen to survivors and the Borg sector working with those survivors about how a national inquiry should be influenced by survivors here in West Yorkshire. We're asking survivors to really demand from parliamentarians what they want them to do once the chair is announced. Just so that you know, the Mayor has written to the Home Secretary. I have to write again now, there's a new one, but anyway, we've written to the Home Secretary asking for details of the chair ASAP, because our intention is to invite them to West Yorkshire to include us as one of the local areas, because of some of the great practice here, but also because of some of the high reporting of that terrible crime here in West Yorkshire. And we're hoping then we'll come up with a report that we will send to the Home Office, and we'll continue a big piece of work around what that inquiry looks like and how voices of West Yorkshire are included. We've started our series Flowers Consultation. It's going really well. We've had a big face-to-face event that was picked up by the media, where Alpha Lewis's aunt came to speak about the impact of serious violence on her and her family. We've had over 2,000 face-to-face conversations so far. It's going really well, and that's continuing over the autumn. And we hope that the strategy will be out middle of next year, but lots more work to do between now and then. If anyone wants to get involved in any of the consultations, please do tell us, and we'll include you and involve you in that. We're planning on a West Yorkshire-wide Reclaim the Night event on 26th of October. Thank you so much for your forbearance. Last year we had an inaugural event in Greenhead Park in Kirklees. Now we're going to have one across the whole of West Yorkshire in a park across the 5 districts on the same night, and hopefully we're going to get lots and lots of citizens of West Yorkshire joining in. It's not just for women, it's for everybody, families. We want people to get engaged with the conversation. The Mayor Safe Communities Fund has closed, and I'd like to say that about £400,000 will be allocated, so I've seen the list. I think the Mayor signed it off. There will be an event, I think it's November, might be October, I think it's November, where we're going to give that money away. So some brilliant organisations will be receiving that money, which comes from the proceeds of Crime Act, of course. And then, finally, I was going to tell you about the Your View survey, but we've already discussed that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thanks for that report. And I'm looking forward to the Reclaim the Night event. We've got 2 in Milford, so thank you for that. I think I've only one, you've answered one of Andrew's questions, which was about the national chair. But I think you have another question.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Just generally around hostels.
Yes, very briefly. You'll be aware from the coverage in the paper that the Home Office are pushing for planning application for hostels in Leeds. I wonder whether the West Yorkshire Police have been consulted by the City Council on that particular proposal, given that the Home Office are pushing for a decision in 3 weeks' time, and particularly also when Leeds have taken proper cognizance of Section 17 of the Crime and Public Safety Act 1998.
Well, I'll ask the Chief Constable in a moment whether he knows anything about it. I know very little about it, having been on holiday happily, and so I know nothing about what's happening in Leeds. But just to say that if it's a Home Office mandation, then the Home Office will be having those conversations rather than the local authority, I should imagine, but the Chief Constable will be able to say what involvement he's had.
We talked about the conversion of the premises in Headingley to residential, so yeah, it's an application through the council or a deviation of the council around the use
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions on what Alison has? No? Okay.
Yes, Chair. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Right
Trevor,
before I had a
see
question.
you. Now I can't hear. No, I can't see you or hear you.
I had a question on, just for an update, recent article on the BBC website about the use of instruction of live facial recognition in West Yorkshire, as was quoted on. Just really, I know this is something in the past, I seem to remember hearing you've been dead against it, so you've obviously been sure. Are you comfortable with that, given the sensitivity of the issue? Are you comfortable that there's sufficient checks and balances?
So I've never been against the use of IT, digital, AI in and of itself. My objection has always been about the ethical considerations, whether or not people from different protected characteristics would be more adversely impacted, and what work has been done to understand any disproportionality and mitigate it. So the live facial recognition vans that are coming have not yet been put into use. There's a bit of work to calibrate and all the rest of it. But since, but before we found out we were going to get these vans, we set up a joint ethics panel here in West Yorkshire. So West Yorkshire Police and WICA have got a joint ethics panel, and one of the main jobs of that ethics panel is to consider technological AI advancements and the impact on policing and on the public. Coincidentally, live facial recognition was one of the areas that they looked at in February, and then they looked at it again in April. So they've had lots of information from West Yorkshire Police about all the ethical considerations, what mitigations are in place, what actually you can see in these vans. So often you can't see faces at all, it's just loads and loads of numbers. The live facial recognition vans that are coming, the way that they're used is that there's a pre-compiled list of names with faces attached. So if they're going into an area and they're looking for a sex offender, they will have a list of sex offenders that they're concerned might be, I don't know, out and about at Pride or out and about at Carnival, and they will put those, upload those into the system, and only if those faces are scanned will they show up on the system. Every other face, it's so quick you can't see it and they're not retained. So the ethics panel were given assurances by West Yorkshire Police, told in detail about the workings of there's not just live facial recognition, there's also a retrospective facial recognition tool that police have used in the past. They then reported their findings to me and to Tracy, and what they're saying is that they see no ethical barriers other than, obviously to keep abreast of the potential for disproportionality for it being used in a way that is damaging to our communities. And just to say that we know that the AI and live facial recognition doesn't work at 100%, so we've got a couple of cases of a white person and a person of BME background that have been wrongly flagged by facial recognition systems, and so officers must always use their best endeavours to make the right choices and right decisions about what they're going to act upon and what they're not going to act upon.
Okay.
I don't know if Chief Constable anything else to add.
No, that's fine, thanks very much.
Thank you. I think I could do with a baseball cap. The sun's in my eyes now. Okay, well, thank you for that. We'll move on to the next item if no one has any further questions there. Okay, the next item is the publishing the key decisions. I think we've all seen the report. We're asked to note the report. Are we happy with that? Okay, you've got the agenda action log. Do we agree with the action log? Are there any questions?
No.
Okay. Got the forward plan. We okay with that? This is going to be quick. Forward plan. Are we all okay with that? I don't believe there's been any complaints to the panel.
Madam Chair, none that should be recorded by the panel.
That's lovely. Thank you, Jo. Anybody, any other business? John. There's always one.
Just commend the Wakefield Council on their recent announcement of a youth zone within Wakefield District. That'll make a fantastic contribution to the support and trying very hard for the last decade to get to some of these, but I think it's very impressive what they've done.
I think we've been working hard over the last decade to get where we are as well, but thank you very much for that. Anybody else, any other business? Okay, with that then I'll close the meeting. The date and time of the next meeting is the 7th of November. Gosh, it's nearly Christmas. At the end of that, I'm sure the chair will be wishing you a Merry Christmas.